Hello again. My name is Mike Pelletier, and this is the Unvarnished Truth. As I indicated in my first segment, which was about the federal budget deficit and the national debt, I'm a semi-retired lawyer and author and motorcyclist residing in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains in East Tennessee. And the purpose of this little segment, which I've labeled the Unvarnished Truth, is to discuss issues of the day. And one of the primary reasons I cited for the debt and deficit in our last segment is that both members of the House of Representatives and United States senators basically seek to be reelected all the time. That's all they're really seeking to do rather than to serve their country. That's one of the reasons we're so frustrated with them. The way Republicans seek reelection is by keeping taxes low or resisting tax increases. And the way Democrats get reelected in Democratic districts or states is to keep spending high or refusing to cut spending. And there's no sign, there's no will anywhere in Washington to raise taxes to pay for spending or to cut spending to reduce the deficit. So what we have is an annual budget deficit. We seem to have settled into a pattern of annual federal budget deficits of about $500 billion, which is just staggering, which is then added to the national debt on an annual basis, and we stand now at $19.5 trillion, which with no sign of abatement. We don't even talk about reducing the national debt. We scarcely talk about balancing the budget or cutting spending or increasing taxes. And the problem is senators and congressmen seeking re-election all the time. So the solution could be a term limit amendment to the United States Constitution, just like in the last segment we suggested a balanced budget amendment to the United States Constitution. We recommended that the budget be balanced in year one. No more 10-year plans. Just either increase taxes or reduce spending by $500 billion in the first year so that it gets done. We suggested as a primary and relatively simple way to get started on that process to lift the cap on Social Security taxable earnings. I think right now it stands at $112,000. Just the sky is the limit. Tax an executive on his pay up to $25 million a year, whatever these guys make. 6% he pays and 6% the employer matches. And see what that does. And then cut spending and raise other taxes as needed. We have to tackle this problem because it's so serious. But the other way to address this is with a term limit amendment. And I don't know what it should be. I don't recommend specific policies. I just point out problems, and suggest possible solutions. But I mean, 6 terms in Congress, in the House of Representatives should be enough. Total of 12 years, 2 years per term. 6 terms, 12 years. Two terms in the Senate. 6 years each term, 2 times 6 years is 12 years. And a radical proposal would be to turn the president out, give the president a 6-year term and no possibility of re-election. Because what we have now is a president basically serving as president for 2 years and then running for re-election for 2 years. And it's just ridiculous. He's not doing the business of the people for the last 2 years of his term. Sure enough, statistics suggest that the average tenure in the House and Senate has gone up over time. And they say now it's about 10 years in the House, average 5 terms, and 13 years in the Senate, 2+ terms. So 6 years, 6 terms in the House, 2 terms in the Senate, basically strike the averages. But, we're led by people with substantially more years in the House and Senate. In the House, the Speaker of the House, if you will, the House Majority Leader, Paul Ryan, has served 17 years in the House. Nancy Pelosi, the House Minority Leader, has served 29 years, as has Harry Reid in the Senate as the Senate Minority Leader, 29 years. Mitch McConnell in the Senate has served 32 years. So the leadership is composed of, veterans who seek re-election term after term after term. And that is a problem. Tennessee, my district in East Tennessee, is represented by a fine conservative. And I cast no aspersions on the politics of our member in the House. His name is Jimmy Duncan. But Representative Duncan has served 25 years, and he was preceded. This is his situation almost suggests nepotism. He was preceded in the House by his own father, who served about 25 years. And Jimmy Duncan is probably getting ready for retirement, and he has a son and a daughter who he hopes might succeed him. This almost sounds like a family seat. And there's something fundamentally wrong with this. And Jimmy Duncan, as a fine conservative, has no doubt voted against every tax increase that's ever come before the Congress. And that's fine, except that, he hasn't stopped the budget increases, the spending increases that continue to result in ever and ever widening deficits that are added to the national debt on an annual basis. So I strongly propose term limits, a term limit amendment to the United States Constitution to ensure that we have citizen politicians, not professional politicians, people who spend their entire lives in public service. I watched the Republican vice presidential debate the other night. And listen, I was very impressed. They are 2 fine men. Some might even say they wish that Tim Kaine was the Democratic nominee for president and Mike Pence was the Republican nominee for president. But talk about career politicians. County executives, mayors, governors of their state, congressmen, senators, their careers have gone on for decades in public service. And I think that what we need are more citizen politicians, people who have had successful careers in business, in medicine, in law. Although, frankly, I think we could use a few less lawyers serving in Congress. And I'll tell you, just as a complete aside, lawyers. The problem with government is the influence of the so-called special interests, the lobbyists. Well, what do the lobbyists have? The lobbyists have money that they give or they channel to political campaigns. What is the business of lawyers? The business of lawyers is taking positions for money. I was a lawyer. I could advocate either side of a position depending on who was paying me. And we have too many lawyers, too many politicians who were lawyers first. And they're used to taking positions for money. We need more people who come into Congress with an agenda, with core beliefs. I don't believe much of anything except, I'm a pro-life lawyer, and so I do have strong, and I'll talk about that in my next segment. I have strong pro-life beliefs. I have strong beliefs on many social issues. But most lawyers don't. They believe in getting paid, and we have too many politicians who believe in getting paid, and maybe that's part of our problem too. So all I'm suggesting is we have more citizen lawyers. That was a bit of a digression. We have more lawyers coming from business, medicine, the arts, what have you, and doing a brief stint in public service and then returning to their careers or retiring after they've served their 12 years in federal government. Maybe that's an appropriate stage at which to retire. It becomes the capstone of a career. But these people bring to government experience in careers where they know that balancing a budget is fundamental. Businesses that run into the ground, that run at deficits, the leader of that business gets fired. They don't get rehired with a new contract, which is what is basically happening to members of Congress today. They're being kept on the job while they are generating tremendous financial losses. And I can't begin to tell you how staggering, I just want to reemphasize how staggering these losses are. Annual deficits of $500 billion. I don't know that President Obama has had a deficit less than $500 billion since he's been president. I believe he has not. These are all record-setting deficits. No president ever had a budget deficit of $500 billion. And President Obama has had 7 or 8 in a row of $500 billion. So the situation is getting worse. And we're spending too much and not taxing enough. And we've got some hard choices to make, and we need serious politicians, not politicians whose only interest is getting reelected. So I propose a term limits amendment to the United States Constitution as a first step in addressing the problems that not just face our nation, but are crippling our nation. That's all from here, and I hope to talk to you next time.